Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker, and after what feels like an insanely long time, we are back with some top 8 deck lists, and it's a very exciting one. These are the first set of top 8 deck lists that I'll be covering post-rotation since the release of set 9, Fabled. It was a big weekend for Lorcana, lots of events going on, and I do plan to cover as many of them as possible. If everything goes according to plan, then from this video onwards, I am going to be away next weekend because I'm at Inc., which I will plug again towards the end of the video. But I'd like to get a couple of videos out this week before I leave covering deck lists and then try and get back into a routine and a pattern. But yeah, super excited to dive into the next meta. And the event that we're going to be taking a look at today is Southside Gaming, who are a part of the furniture when it comes to third-party companies, LGSs, putting on huge Lorcana events up there with the likes of Cerberus Den and Charlie Collectible Shows, and I could go on. And Southside Gaming have been doing an awful lot for the community for a long time, and yeah, they were quick to host a large event. This was 126 players. I actually had the pleasure of remotely casting this event, and a quick peek behind the curtain, the guys at SSG actually invited me to come down in person. They were going to pay my expenses and pay me a fee and everything, which I was like super grateful for, and I tried my best to make it work. But I had already agreed a long time ago to do Inc. in Baltimore, where I am next weekend. I'm then in Cardiff at the last weekend of September for the CCQ with Spessy and Kim, and then next month I've got Bologna, and I'm going to be coming to Milwaukee, which I'm really excited for. But it's a lot of time away from mum and my responsibilities at home. So as much as I tried to get it to work, it's just too much in a too short span of time. So I did have to decline. It was heartbreaking, but we immediately said we'd like to make it work in the future at some point. So I look forward to the day that I get to be at SSG in person, but they still offered me the chance to cast remotely, working with 20, Michael Skinner, first to 20, another like super old school Lorcana player, community member, has been doing fabulous work casting Southside Gaming events, and it was great to finally get to work with him. But yeah, it was a really great day. It was a long day. There were some issues with the Ravensburger Play Hub, which I'm not going to talk about in this video. If that ends up being a pattern over the next couple of weeks, then I will inevitably talk about it in more detail, but we'll let it go for now. But there were some issues with it. We had a late start, and there was a lot of stopping and starting, which was unfortunate, but we did make it through. I managed to cast basically all the way through to the until the top 8, and by which point it was 3 in the morning for me, and I had to go to bed. But I've spent the morning doing my research and catching up on what I missed, and we're going to be going over the top 8 deck list. Before we do, though, I will give you a quick breakdown of the Metashare for the entire room. And there was 126 players, and the most popular deck, which is going to be the theme for today, because 5 of our top 8 deck lists are this ink combination. We have Sapphire Amethyst, more commonly known as Blurple. 34 players in the room were playing this, and yeah, 5 of them made top 8. So yeah, in second place we had Amethyst Steel with 27 players, and there are 2 Amethyst Steel decks in this top 8, and it won. I said the other day in my stream where I was opening a box of Fabled, and at the beginning of casting this event, that I predicted Amethyst Steel would take it home. It feels like the best deck in the format early days. Maybe it is actually Blurple, but on this day, Amethyst Steel went all the way. In third place was Amber Steel with 22 players. In fourth place, to make my heart sing, Ruby Amethyst with 11 players. And there is 1 Ruby Amethyst in top 8 that we're going to be taking a look at today. So I'm really excited for that. 7 players playing Emerald Amber, so like dogs, things like that. 7 players playing Sapphire Emerald, which we actually saw on stream a few times. Didn't make top 8, but some really cool looking builds, playing things like Basil and John Silver. It looks like a really cool deck. 6 players on Emerald Amethyst, although I didn't see that at all throughout the day, so I have no idea what those deck lists look like. We had 6 Sapphire Steel lists, and I think this was during my, I took a round off, but that match ended up being a Blue Steel Allies list, but without the Jasmine, but playing the new Scar, and it seemed to really pop off. And then a couple of rounds later, when I was back, I did get to watch that same player pilot that deck. It didn't go their way for that game, but it looked really cool. But only 6 in the room is a bit of a surprise. I thought there'd be more hype for Blue Steel. 3 players on Ruby Steel, which I tried to get on stream all day, but it just didn't happen. And then 3 players on Ruby Sapphire. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. At least in this event. Everything, once I look at the other events, maybe Ruby Sapphire won everything else. Not from what I've seen, but there is time. Ruby Sapphire could claw its way back. But yeah, what a drop. Only 3 players in the room on it. So that was the Metashare. We're going to get into it. A shout out to the channel sponsor, Cardmarket. If you're looking for Lorcana singles at competitive rates, then check out Cardmarket. But let's look at the top 8 deck lists. At this point in time, I have done a decent amount of testing, but I definitely feel like I'm more familiar with certain builds. I don't feel like I've got the entire meta sussed out. Not that anyone ever has, but obviously we get to a point where you feel more confident in breaking down a list and understanding every decision. I don't know if I'm there yet. I'm going to do my best to justify things where I see fit and speculate, but really I'm learning at the same time as a lot of you, to be honest. But Amethyst Steel has felt strong in the testing that I've done with it and against it, and it was able to go all the way. 2 of them in the top 8. So in first place we have Tiago, or Tiago. I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong, my friend, but congratulations to you. We'll start off with the elephant in the room. Quite literally, we have the 9th wonder of the universe! It had to be done. 4 cost Inkable, 3 quests for 1, evasive, and 2 abilities. We've got Breaking Records, where you can exert and pay 1 ink to draw a card and gain 1 lore. And we've got Making History, where we give that ability to our other evasive characters. Your other characters with evasive gain, exert, pay 1 ink, draw a card, gain 1 lore. This was very obviously powerful right from the get-go, but one of those cards where it definitely needed some testing. If you play this on turn 4, then you're never getting the ability straight away. So if you want immediate value from this Dumbo, you need to play it off curve from 5 ink onwards and already have another evasive character on board that can take advantage of that. But that doesn't seem like the worst thing in the world. We saw Dumbo pop up a couple of times on stream. The first time he didn't really do too much, and then we saw it piloted by Zach Bivens, where it looked a lot stronger, although the particular board state, and Zach said this himself in his post-interview, that in that game it was a little win more, like it drew him a lot of cards and gained lore, but by that point in the game he kind of already had control of the board and it was going his way. But in my own testing with Dumbo in Ruby Amethyst, where I'm playing heavy evasives, I'm playing 3 cost Cecil, I'm playing Vanellope Von Schweetz, playing Moana, the Island Explorer, and obviously Genie, so when you've got a large amount of evasives, and the fact that the meta at the moment seems... It is an aggressive format, but games feel super stally. Like, no one wants to turn sideways. You really just seem to spend turn after turn setting up these blocks, setting up your wall, and then you're waiting for the right turn where you can actually just do everything at once, whether that's waiting for enough characters to strength for a raging fire on the most annoying threat on the opposing board, and then take a big quest turn. It is an aggressive format, but there's a lot of standoffs we're seeing at the moment. So that being the case, if you can build a wall of some evasive characters and then get this Dumbo down and then immediately have enough ink to turn a couple of them sideways using Making History, gaining some lore, drawing some cards, and yeah, the fact that you gain a lore as part of the ability is so important, because doing with this using this ability with Elsa just feels amazing, because she's only ever questing for 1 anyway. If you were giving up a lore to draw a card, that can still be great. Drawing cards is obviously king, but the fact that we are able to keep up, whether it's catching up with our opponent or keep edging closer and closer to the finish line as we continue to draw cards and just keep a board presence. So characters like Elsa and the Genie Satisfied Dragon, who we'll get to in a moment, are perfect for this sort of ability. And you can even use it with things like Genie, you just weigh up the game and is this a point where I want more cards, I want more options to be able to control the board, or is it time to hit the trigger and just start questing with Genie and take the 2 lore per turn? But it's so strong in theory, and I'm seeing a lot of lists that did well with this Dumbo, so the data seems to suggest that this card is absolutely a winner. The second-hand market price for this is already through the roof before this event, and I feel like post this weekend it's going to go up even more. I think this could end up being one of the most expensive playable cards of all time. I say playable, I'm not counting Enchanted or some of those big collectible cards, but when it comes to just playable cards, I compare it to something like Shark, right? But I think this is going to end up being more expensive than Shark, but we'll see, though. Time could tell, and people will adapt obviously for Dumbo, so maybe his shining moment is closer to the beginning of a format than it is the end. And me and Skinner 20 on cast were actually speculating, because he's been playing some purple Steel and he's not playing Dumbo. And we were having a conversation about it where I was like, I think there are definitely Purple Steel builds that will benefit from Dumbo, but I don't think it's necessarily his main deck. I think Blurple is the main deck for Dumbo, and I have been enjoying Dumbo in an evasive version of Ruby Amethyst, but lots of Amethyst Steel players finding success with Dumbo in their deck this weekend. But yeah, we're going to be talking about this Dumbo for a while, I think, unless we get to a point where the meta has adapted so much for him that you just don't see him anymore. But yeah, Dumbo seems to be pretty cool. Talk about this genie again, Satisfy Dragon, just a 3-cost 3/4 quest for 1, and it gets evasive during your turn. This is cheap, it's inkable, it's a fantastic stat line. It deals with opposing Dumbos, which is absolutely incredible. You can deal with opposing genies if you can boost this, courtesy of something like the Jafar Aspiring Ruler that we're running 2 copies of to give Challenger 2. I really like this card. Obviously, we've lost Crab. The Ruby decks are sometimes playing... the Amethyst decks are also sometimes playing Yolana or Hypnotic Strength, and still taking advantage of this Jafar for Challenger 2. It's just so important in the early game to be able to hit certain numbers, take out Daisy Ducks, things like that, especially if you're up against Tiana variants where maybe you can't afford to pay the ink, so they're reducing your strength, but maybe you can boost it up enough with something like Jafar where you're still at least taking out your target. But this is good, and it quests for 2. Obviously, Genie's one of the kings of the format. Elsa's feel like one of the strongest cards in the game right now. I mean, they've always felt strong since they came out, but right now, and again, going back to what I was just saying, where you seem to get a lot of just nothing turns sideways until like turn 4, 5, 6, depending on what deck it is, like, and when they can feel like they can engage. Words are hard, man. They can engage in combat once they've hit that pivotal turn where they can play something like Strength of a Raging Fire or this Elsa to suddenly turn the biggest threat sideways and break the board, or even something like this Bell, which just seems so good. One of the most powerful cards in Amethyst now. Obviously, it's seen play in the past. The Bell Accomplished Mystic on play. You can move up to 3 damage from chosen character to chosen opposing character. She's a 4/4 quest for 2. She's inkable. She's 5 cost. And this 3 damage that you're moving is so significant. Like, just taking out Dumbo, but 3 is a pretty relevant number at the moment. There's a lot of characters where like being able to hit 3 is super important. So yeah, Bell, fantastic. I'm a little bit surprised at the low count in this deck, to be honest, but hey, they got first place, so who am I to argue? Some spice. We've got 3 copies of Treasure Guardian, Foreboding Sentry. At last, after all my years of searching, the Cave of Wonders. I love it, mate. 4-cost inkable, 3/3 quest for 2, an Untold Treasure. When you play this character, if you have an illusion character in play, you may draw a card. Now, this is quite an interesting curve. We do indeed have illusions. We're running 3 copies of Raja, Ghostly Tiger, who's a 2-cost inkable, 3/3 quest for 1 with that vanish keyword. If targeted by an action, then he's immediately banished. I don't think this is much of a negative at the moment. Strength for a Raging Fire, obviously, like, they only need to do 1 damage. It doesn't matter the damage, they're targeting you with an action, so you're going to be gone. But I think it's pretty easy to hit this 3 to banish Raja anyway with something like Strength. People are playing Hypnotic Strength, which can target it, but that's like a 2-cost for a 2-cost. It doesn't seem amazing. I mean, I suppose theirs replaces itself, but meh. Yeah, there just doesn't seem to be too many relevant actions at the moment that are, like, really going to bother these illusions too much. And we're running 4 copies of Giant Cobra, who obviously on play you can discard a card to gain 2 lore. So some nice lore burst. We've lost our goats, but we've got the Cobras. 4 copies of White Rose here for passive lore gain as well. We've got Calhoun's here to help control the board. A Taylor's Oldest Time. 4 copies of Doc. We're also seeing 2 copies of Madam Mim Tiny Adversary, or as she will now henceforth be known, copyright 1st to 20, Avrula Mim, which very much tickled me. She was a skater girl. Skater Mim, should I say, sorry. Yeah, just blanket. She has Challenger 1 and then blanket Challenger 1 to all your other characters. Again, stats seem to really matter. Boosting a genie. Now, this genie can now take out an opposing genie. That wasn't very clear. This steel genie can now take out the wish-fulfilled Amethyst genie. This Captain Hook can one-shot a Daisy Duck. Just this Challenger 1, like, really fixes your math for a lot of things. This seems to be a really popular card so far post-rotation, so I like it. 4 copies of Diablo, 3 copies of Palace Guard, who is another illusion. So lots of illusions to be able to actually draw a card off of this Treasure Guardian. This is quite spicy, actually. I really like this. I'd not considered this at all, to be honest, but I think I'm gonna have to give this a try. And hey, this deck came first, so I think a few people will. We've also got Jasmine Fearless Princess. 5 cost Inkable, 3/7, quest for 2. Take the leap during your turn. This character gains evasive. Nice. It's an answer to a lot of evasives, and if you've got that Madam Mim on board, then you're hitting for 4, which is pretty relevant, and it's already dealing with Dumbos. And now's my chance. Choose and discard a card. This character gains Challenger 3 this turn. So now you're hitting for 6, which is taking out most of the format, to be honest. Or even hitting for 7 if you've got Madam Mim on board. And don't forget you're evasive during your turn, so you're taking out everything evasive in the game. This is really cool. It's probably a little slow, but it's 5 cost, it's inkable, it's super annoying. I like it. I like it a lot. So yeah, that is our first Amethyst Steel deck, but yeah, in testing this has felt really strong. Just 4 copies of Strength seems to be enough to be able to answer the key threat. Things like Jafar and Madam Mim, these damage fixers, like, really do go a long way. We've got a good amount of evasives, the Genie, the Genie, the other Genie, the Elsa, and even the Jasmine gets evasive during your turn, so you can still activate Making History, or of course using it itself. We've got the Law Burst with White Roses and Giant Cobras. Docks are obviously some of the best cards we've got in the game at the moment. Super aggressive. I like this Treasure Guardian there. This deck looks really, really solid, so a huge congratulations to them. And our other Amethyst Steel deck in top 8, we have the legendary Zach Bivens. 3rd place at the Disney Lorcana World Championship. Always a pleasure to get to watch Zach throw down. And yeah, he brought what is pretty much his bread and butter, Amethyst Steel, a deck that he's been playing for a long time. That and Amber Steel Song have always kind of been his trademarks. A lot of similarities here. We've got that Dumbo engine with the Genies. Only 1 copy of the White Rose in here, but 4 copies of Belle. Love to see this. I think this Belle is just so good at the moment. Those 4 strength, but we're also playing 2 copies of Hypnotic Strength as another way of fixing damage, along with the 3 copies of Jafar, so putting a little more emphasis on that ability to be able to fix numbers early. We're even running 4 copies of the Royal Vizier Jafar, who gets evasive during your turn, so another character that can benefit from the Making History ability. On Dumbo, 3 copies of Madam Mim and 3 copies of Happy, another character that gets evasive during your turn. So many targets for this Dumbo to be able to take advantage of, but not only that, ways to answer the opposing Dumbos, the opposing Genies, like this Happy plus a Jafar or a Hypnotic Strength is now one-shotting a Genie. That's pretty big. So I really like this build by Bivens. I like the higher emphasis on Belle for sure. I very much like the Royal Vizier Jafar as another target, but I like some of the decisions that the first player made. The Jasmine, pretty spicy, a bit more emphasis on illusion. So yeah, 2 slightly different but very powerful Amethyst Steel builds. Congratulations to Bivens. Alright, going back to 2nd place, the first of 5 Blurple decks. So we're going to be starting off with Travis, and this is definitely one of the more unique ones. Let's start with some new cards. Obviously the Dumbo we've talked about a lot, and we'll just double check our evasive targets for that. Obviously the Genie's Wish Fulfilled. We've got Elsa's in here. And that is actually it. So just like 12 evasive characters, including the Dumbos themselves. That can just be enough. We've seen Shark decks work with like such a small action package. I do like the idea of having more evasives for this Dumbo, but I can still see this working. We are also playing 1 copy of the new Magic Feather, 2 cost inkable item. When you play it, chosen character of yours gains evasive, and you can pay 3 ink to return this item to your hand. So we do have the ability to give other characters evasive, whether just because we want them to be annoying questers, we want them to answer an opposing evasive character, or maybe we just want to be able to use Making History courtesy of Dumbo. But I've seen a few players playing a one-off of this, so definitely interesting. 3 copies of Into the Unknown. Put chosen exerted character into the player's inkwell face down and exerted. Now again, if you're in a standoff where no one wants to turn sideways, then it could be a while before you get use out of this, but it is just some of the best removal we have in the game right now. And I was saying during the stream the other day casting, Hades is just our premium removal right now, being able to just pop a thing and you are establishing a 3/6 quest for 2 character. So Hades just feels like the best removal in the game right now. Like Blurple seems like this is the new control deck. This Blurple feels closer to old school Ruby Amethyst than what Ruby Amethyst feels like now, to be honest. Hades is just the highest value it's ever been, and Into the Unknown, obviously they need to be exerted, but if they are, then it's so incredibly cheap. Play it early. This is great for shutting down Tianas as well, whether you're on the play or on the draw. Even if you just cast this and you don't even sing it, like just get the Tiana off the board, which they were expecting to protect their other questers, and then your 1 and 2 drop can deal with them. So yeah, Hades into the Unknown, I think, are going to like be such pivotal pieces of our format, at least until set 10, and then maybe beyond, depending on how much changes from set 10. Another interesting card that we're seeing here, a little more unique among the Blurple decks. We've got the new Ursula Voice Stealer, 5-cost Ingable, 3/4, quest for 1, and Sing for Me! Phantom of the Opera. When you play this character, exert chosen opposing ready character. Great, that's already a great ability, just being able to exert opposing characters. It's like, you could think of it as extra copies of Elsa almost, except you don't have evasive and you can't rush. Then you may play a song with cost equal to or less than the exerted character's cost for free. Our only song is Into the Unknown. Thankfully, it's only a 3 cost, so as long as the character that we exert is 3 cost or more, then we can do this. I think this is okay. Just the exertability in itself is just like really good. And if you can then get a free into the Unknown, and maybe this is your way of like just turning them sideways so you can use the Into the Unknown. So yeah, this is definitely interesting, and they got second place with it. Travis, if you're watching, I'd love to know how this performed over the day. Did it do a lot? Was it mostly ink? I'd love to hear it. We got Donald Duck in here for some extra ramp, along with the usual suspects like Tipo and Sale. 4 Bell, 4 Finders Keepers, 4 Hypnotic Strength to fix math, and we can see our 1-drops are very much built to be able to deal damage. The Royal Guard obviously getting Challenger every time you draw a card, so even if you just draw for turn, then he's a 2/2 when he has Challenger 1, so he's hitting for 2. If you play Hypnotic Strength, then you're drawing another card, so he's now hitting for 3, but if you target him with Hypnotic Strength, then he's then hitting for 5, which is super relevant for taking out things like Rhino. And if you play Finders Keepers, that's an extra Challenger 3, so this Royal Guard can hit like an absolute truck. And the Basil here, who's a 2/1 quest for 1, who has support, so being able to quest with this and then give the other 2 strength to whether it's the Royal Guard, whether it's one of your evasives to deal with an opposing evasive. Like, a lot of people are enjoying this Basil at the moment, the Practice Detective, which I'm all for. And there's no green-blue decks to look at today, but in the during casting yesterday, there was a green-blue mirror match, and there were just Basils everywhere. And as a proud Basil fan, I was all for it. We're also running 2 copies of Madam Mim Elephant, which seems to be this is in every Blurple, pretty much every Blurple list I've seen. There might be one that we're about to look at where I could be proved wrong, but the majority of lists that I've seen, even away from this event, people are really enjoying this Madam Mim Elephant. It's the last of the bounce package that we have, the traditional Sword in the Stone, returning characters to your hand. It's all we got left. 4-cost Ingable, 3/7 quest for 1. You have to return a character to your hand to play her, or she's banished. And at the start of your turn, you can move up to 2 damage counters from this character to chosen opposing character. Without things like Medusa, this is so much harder to remove. Being able to bounce characters back to your hand has always had innate value, whether it's your come into play abilities like Hades and Belle, and there's a couple of Elsas here, the Elsa, the Ursula, so much. There's Rafiki's here as well, which we'll get to, but bouncing them back to your hand, it could be super cool. And this stat line is just really good. Like, 7's so hard to deal with, and 3 strength can be, like, is already a relevant number, but if we boost it with Hypnotic Strength, like, she is an absolute truck, and I've seen a lot of people playing 4 copies of this Madam Mim Elephant, so definitely a card I'd expect to see again. And then, yeah, one of our better rush characters that we have left, the Rafiki Shaman Duelist, 4-cost uninkable, 1/4. It's time to duel! Quest for 2, rush, and when you play this character, he gets Challenger 4 this turn. So the turn you play him and assumedly rush him, he's a 5/4. He's rushing and hitting for 5, which is really nice. The 4 willpower. If you do survive it, then you're sticking a character that can then quest for 2. It's obviously only going to be hitting for 1 if it challenges anything past its original turn. But again, you can bounce it back to your hand with Madam Mim Elephant and maybe do this again. But we know Rush is great. I proper respect having this in here. And we're running 3 copies of Arna, who we were already seeing in Blurple lists last set. 6-cost Ingable, 3/6 quest for 1. She's a shift 4, which is irrelevant for this particular deck. Support, and whenever this character quests, if you have a character named Elsa in play, you may draw a card. So being able to establish this Arna, it's a little slow, but being able to establish this Arna, and then on a following turn, play the Elsa 5th Spirit, you exert something down, you then quest with this Ana, you support the Elsa, so she's now hitting for 5, plus you're drawing a card because you have an Elsa on the board and you just quested with the Ana, and then the Ana rushing in as a 5/5 beat stick. Like, that's one of the highest ceilings for this card and its synergy, but again, support can be given to anything. There are also just the Floodborn Elsa, and again, just the 3/6 quest for 2 is just not a bad stat line at the moment. Like, they can be tricky to deal with, especially since we lost Maui. So yeah, Ana still very much holding a place, but yeah, really, really nice. I think this is one the most different of the Blurple decks. So yeah, maybe that says something, that maybe some of these cards that maybe not everyone was expecting, like Ursula and Rafiki, like really serve a purpose. But yeah, very, very cool. Huge congratulations to Travis. In top 4, we have Kendall with another fairly unique Blurple list, but for specific reasons. So this is the famous Kendall Burdett of world-class cards, wonderful player, wonderful person, and one of the OG masters of Ruby Amethyst, which, as I was saying not too long ago, current Blurple seems more like old school Ruby Amethyst than Ruby Amethyst appears to be now. And again, Kendall was very experienced with that particular deck, so it's no huge surprise to see him on Blurple. But you made me noticing the lack of Dumbo and thinking, oh, okay, so that's interesting. Kendall isn't a fan of Dumbo. Not true. Pretty sure Kendall is a fan of Dumbo. So much so that he confirmed that he was trying to get Dumbos, couldn't get them. So the replacements for 4 Dumbo are an extra 2 copies of Vision of the Future, and 2 copies of Ryder, the fleet-footed infiltrator. 4 Gosdingable, 3/4 quest for 1 evasive. This is Genie Satisfied Dragon at home. It's exactly the same stat line and ability, but 1 more expensive, which I'm not calling that out as stupid. Like, different inks should be the way. Like, some inks should have certain things be cheaper for them or easier to do. Like, I'm not against that as a concept, but it's just a little bit funny that it is more expensive. But despite that, this is still a relevant stat line, right? It answers Dumbo and survives. It's another evasive that you can boost to take out opposing evasive. We actually saw this card put in some work when we had Kendall on stream, so yeah, I respect it. Vision of the Future, not a common tool in Blurple in the past, but room found for it now, and it seemed to do very well that day. And then yeah, some spice. We've got 3 copies, count them, 3, of Second Star to the right. Sing Together 10, chosen player draws 5 cards, and this popped off on stream, and I did very much consider immediately buying 3 Enchanted Second Star to the right. I realised it was financially irresponsible at the moment, but it's one of my favourite Enchanteds as well. I think it's really beautiful, but I'm kind of starting to believe, because in this matchup in particular that we watched, it performed really well, and Kendall made it all the way to top 4, 3 copies in the deck. That means they were being drawn. They were definitely being used. Yeah, I'm a fan of this. And then we're also running 2 copies of TikTok Ever Present Pursuer. Let's go. My reveal card for set 9. 6 cost Inkable, 4/7 quest for 1 evasive. I'm going to say exactly what I said when we revealed this card. It doesn't strike you as the most, like, interesting reprint, but this stat line is potentially really relevant, just because obviously we already knew Genie is a thing. We'd had Dumbo revealed by the time I revealed this, so I said at the time, like, hey, if Dumbo and like big evasive packages end up being like good enough, then this card is pretty good as a like way to eat those evasives, because 4 takes out pretty the majority of evasives. Not sharks, but you can boost up with Hypnotic Strength to be able to do that. The 7 Wall Power, it is a little bit expensive, I grant you, but we're Blurple, we're playing this sooner anyway, so I'm a bit of a fan of the 2 of TikTok. And I will say there was another event this weekend being hosted by the Forbidden Mountain, which I'm hopefully going to cover in a separate video, but shout out to Zenulus from Team Maelstrom, who made top 4, and I think they did a split, but he was undefeated running Blurple. A list similar to this, but no, he was running Dumbos, I'm pretty sure though, but he was also one of 2 of TikTok, and was a big fan of it, so yeah, told ya. Anyway, we've also got 2 Iagos here, just another big evasive body, and then everything else we've really talked about. Rafiki's in here as another very relevant beat stick, hitting for 3 and potentially 5 if you boost it up with Hypnotic Strength. So yeah, Kendall, what he said himself, he would play Dumbo. It would be -2 Rider, -2 Vision for 4 Dumbo, which makes sense to me. But Decklist looks really, really good, and I think Blurple is just going to be top Do I think it's going to be top tier? I think it's going to be the most played deck. I really do think Amethyst Steel can compete with it well. But I think Blurple, it's a sea of Blurple, let's put it that way. Nonetheless, congratulations to Kendall. And also in top 4 on Blurple, we have Rolando, which I hope I'm saying right. Some interesting things here as well. We're only playing 2 copies of Dumbo. Is this a conscious decision, or is this all that the player could get by this point? Maybe they couldn't get more. Rolando, if you're watching, I'd love to know. We're running 2 copies of Genie's Supportive Friend, who I'm actually quite a fan of. I have done some testing with this. 4-cost uninkable 3/5 quest for 1. When he quests, shovel him into the deck, draw 3 cards. We have lost so much of our card draw. This is now some of our best card draw, to be honest. It's slow, but sometimes so can games be, if you're both just setting up characters and not turning anything sideways. So if you can play this on 4, or like turn 3, because we're ramp, so even better, and then be able to start your next turn by just questing, drawing an extra 3 cards, like that just seems like so much advantage. I'm a fan of this Genie. I think we may see him here and there. Running 2 copies of that Rafiki that we've already talked about, 2 copies of Scrooge McDuck, just a really solid card for Blurple to run at a 4 cost, so you can play it on turn 3, 5/5 quest for 2, solid. We've got Anna's in here, only 3 Hades, the Hypnotic Strength, the Finders, the Sails, obviously, the Into the Unknown, and we're also seeing 2 copies of the Queen Jealous Beauty, who I was a big fan of when she was first revealed. She did not live up to that hype. Maybe post-rotation she can find a success, and starting off with a top 4 is not bad. 4-cost inkable 4/3 quest for 1. You may exert, choose 3 cards from chosen opponent's discard, and put them on the bottom of their deck to gain 3 lore, and if there was a princess, gain 4 lore instead. Getting a princess had a degree of reliability behind it in the past, mostly because of Cinderella Ballroom Sensation, who obviously isn't in the game anymore. I still think there's a degree of a good chances that you'll be able to get the 4 lore, because Belle and Elsa are obviously humongously popular, and if you end up being up against a full-on Amber Steel princess deck, does it have to be Amber Steel, the princess deck? Nonetheless, a princess deck, then you eating. But yeah, this is an interesting card. I think there's a real high roll here, the 4/3 stat line. I'm happy to see this in the deck, so I'd love to see the Queen continue to perform well throughout the format, but everything else we've pretty much talked about, so congratulations to them. Also in top 8 on Blurple, we have Jeremy, and I'm 99% certain that this is Jeremy from Zan Zayed's podcast. Wonderful guy. I had the pleasure of meeting him at the World Championship, and I'm a big fan of their podcast. So yeah, shout out to you, Jeremy. On Blurple, also running 1 copy of that Genie Supportive Friend, which, as I was just saying, I'm actually a big fan of this card. We've got the Dumbos, this list seeming a lot more streamlined. High counts of everything. Particularly interested in the 2 copies of One Jump Ahead. We are playing Tipo and Sail and 2 copies of One Jump. So just really saying I am ramping on 2. And there's nothing you can do about it. Maybe there's a specific other use that I'm missing straight away of why we would want it. Off the top of my head, I would just assume this is just extra. If you don't ramp on 2, this deck probably feels significantly worse. So maybe it's just better odds to be able to hit it. I'm sure if we look out for the next podcast, then Jeremy will talk all about it. But yeah, it looks good. And the other card I really like in here, 4 copies of Blue Fairies, the Blurple Dual Link cards. 2-cost inkable, 2/2 quest for 1, evasive and support. We know the importance of evasive, and we've seen support be putting in some work already. No Anna in this list, but other Blurple lists taking advantage of it. We've seen Basil's, the 1-drop in some of these Blurple lists, and this providing support and just being another evasive target for your Dumbo making history. Yeah, I really like this list. 4 copies of the Madam Mim Elephant, that tells you a lot. And then again, 1-drops being beat stick seems to be the main strategy nowadays. We've seen some Diablos, but stats really matter. But looks really solid. Congratulations to Jeremy. And our final Blurple list in top 8, we've got David. A lot of the same sort of things going on here. Only 6 1-drops is certainly interesting. We got the Donald Duck for some Ram, 2 copies of that Anna, 2 copies of Robin Hood, Unrivaled Archer, who we actually saw a few times on stream, but in the blue-green decks, which was really cool. And one in particular that was playing down in New Orleans, taking advantage of this 6-cost character, which was pretty cool. But yeah, 6-cost 4/4 quest for 2. If your opponent has more cards in their hand when you play Robin Hood, then you can draw a card, and gaining evasive during your turn. Drawing cards is king. Being evasive for Dumbo will just because evasive, is very cool. So I like this edition. I'm running one copy of Monstro, who it's a little surprising to have not seen many Monstros in these Blurple decks so far. They were absolutely staple in previous format, but that was because Steel Song was what it was, and you needed this to be able to combat it. Maybe not as necessary in the current format, according to a lot of Blurple players, but David here, taking advantage of one copy, 6/8 quest for 2, rush, and you can choose and discard a card to re-ready him, so potentially taking out a lot of targets. 4 copies of Into the Unknown. Really solid looking list. Congratulations to David. And the final list to take a look at today. I'm going to try and not spend too much time on it. I don't want this video to go too long. But super happy to see top 8 we've got Eric. Now I've been playing quite a bit of Ruby Amethyst, but predominantly heavy evasives, which there are some evasives in here. But I'm on 4 Shark, I'm on Vanellope Von Schweetz, higher action package, things like that. But this is a bit of a mix. There's some evasive, but it is also seemingly a flinger dinger deck, which seems to be the name that all the cool kids are giving this deck. And it's a concept that I was really enjoying last set. You all know, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know I was so high on this Everybody's Got a Weakness. And playing it last set, it was good, but the deck just folded to Steel. Now, Steel isn't what it once was. Still powerful, but no Storm, no Zeus. It is easier to make some of these characters stick, although if they're playing a lot of cannons, then that can feel really, really bad. But I like this deck in concept. Everybody's Got a Weakness, 4-cost inkable. You can move 1 damage from each of your damage characters to chosen opposing character, and then you draw a card for each card removed this way. So if you can move 3 or 4 damage from 3 or 4 of your characters, put all that damage on one thing, probably pop that thing, and then draw 3 or 4 cards, that is huge. Absolutely huge. I'm a big fan of this card, and I really want it to perform well this set. We've got Mulan, who enters with damage. We're running 2 copies of Prince John, a 5/5 beat stick, who takes damage every time your opponent plays a character, sorry. We're running Madame Medusa, who's still one of my favourite cards for in post-rotation. I was enjoying it last set, and I'm enjoying it post-rotation. I think it's really important to help you on the draw games. Put 2 damage. You may put 2 damage on one of your characters to return a character of 2 cost or less to that player's hand. So many characters that you can annoy your opponent by bouncing back. Things like Nala's, opposing Lumiere's, or the Avril Lamin. I just really like Medusa, and of course putting damage on a character is then going to help you with setting up Everybody's Got a Weakness. We're running Palace Guard, who's a nice 1/4 to take that damage, or a Diablo to just draw us a card. But we're also running 4 copies of Queen of Hearts, who I really, really like. When she's got damage, you get an extra 3 strength, and that 4 willpower is nice to have some damage sitting on her to then be able to remove it with Everybody's Got a Weakness. But don't forget, we're running 3 copies of Belle, Accomplished Mystic, who can also take advantage of the damage sitting on our characters and move them across the board. So you absolutely love to see that. We're also running 2 copies of Lose the Way, exerts chosen character, and then you may discard a card and that character can't ready at the start of the next turn. I don't think you'll use that secondary ability a lot. Maybe it comes up once in a while, but really we're just exerting things down. We're already running Elsa's, obviously, but we're running 2 copies of Merlin Shark. Merlin Shark? I need Fanner. Merlin Shark. Maui Half Shark. We're also running 2 copies of Mulan Elite Archer, who I absolutely adore. Obviously, we can shift onto our 1-drop. But yeah, Mulan, on the turn you shift her, she gets +3 strength. And if she deals damage to another character by challenging, you deal the same damage to up to 2 other chosen characters. So if we assume that we're challenging on the turn we shift her, she's a 5/6, and then we're doing 5 damage to an extra 2 characters, and we can potentially raise her strength back up with Hypnotic Strength, even past the turn that you played her. The 6 willpower is nice to hold some damage for weakness or Belle. Moana, Island Explorer, is just a fantastic character in the evasive meta at the moment. 4/3, you're dealing with most evasive things. And then when she challenges, you give +3 strength to another one of your characters. So a nice uptrade with Diablo, Palace Guard, Queen of Hearts to set the damage on Queen of Hearts maybe. I love this. This is all really, really cool. And 4 copies of Yzma, who's very much raised in price. Again, we're lacking card draw at the moment. So this is a pretty premium card draw if you're playing a version of the deck that is Dock-esque in where you're incentivized to empty your hand quickly. So good odds that by the time you play this Yzma, you've got a low hand size. The next turn, you go ink, play a card, or play 2 cards. Yzma, draw up to 3. Yzma feels really good at the moment. And we're running 2 copies of the library. The locations very much feel like they've fallen off, but great to see a couple of copies of the library in here. Lumiere to raise the strength of characters. The only character I'm not sold on in this deck, and I've just never been sold on it, and like I say this with complete genuinity, Ruby Amethyst stands like educate me. Explain to me what I'm missing. I can see a couple of the interactions. Skinner brought one up on stream the other day of like being able to put 1 damage on like a Pluto so that it loses its extra strength. And of course it can just be a general math fixer. It's not that I don't see things it can do, just is it impactful enough to warrant the 4 slots? I've not tested her much, to be honest, so I'd love the opinions of Eric if you're watching this, or just anyone that's a Mother Gothel enjoyer. This is just the one card that I'm not sold on, but educate me. If I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong, and I will sleeve her up, because this art is incredible. I really like this deck. I'd like to maybe fix these counts a little bit. Like, you're putting emphasis on being, like, the extra lose the way to be able to exert opposing characters. I just want to take advantage of that more with Mulan and Maui. Like, I get you don't have to. Sometimes it's just about breaking the board and having the bigger thing. And we've got Moana's and Prince John's and maybe Queen of Hearts with damage hitting for 4. Like, we've got some nice beat sticks. But I feel like I would just want to lean into that a little bit more. I don't know what my cuts would be. Again, I need to hear some justification from Mother Gothel. And again, I can see a couple of the specific use cases. I just wonder if there's better that we can play. But yeah, if you like the Gothel, let me know why. But overall, big fan of the deck. I love Everybody's Got a Weakness so much. I love seeing Yzma in here. Madame Medusa, I've been singing her praises, and Queen of Hearts for a long time. This is really cool, man. So thank you, Eric, for putting a spotlight on Ruby Amethyst post-rotation. A huge congratulations to you. And that is it. Once again, a huge thank you to Southside Gaming for allowing me to cast remotely. It was an awful lot of fun. What are your opinions on this set of top 8 deck lists? I'm going to be really interested to look at all the data from the weekend and see, are there some patterns developing here? Do things look different at other events? Are there other ink combinations that are shining a little more? Or is this a sign of things to come? Let me know your thoughts about the meta down below. Did you play this weekend? Were you watching? What are your initial impressions? Like, again, we're learning the meta together, guys, so any comments you've got, I will absolutely read, and maybe it'll be something that I'll bring up in a future video to take into account. But it's good to be back. Genuinely really good to be back. Again, I'm away next weekend, so I'm not going to say, yeah, 4 or 5 videos this week. Probably not, but 2 or 3 I'm definitely going to aim for. I want to cover all the events that happened last weekend. But yeah, next weekend I will be at the Ink Invitational. I will continue to plug this over the course of the next couple of videos, but really, really looking forward to that. Let me know. I think I've already asked this, but yeah, if I'm going to be meeting you there, very excited. And if I'm going to be meeting you for the first time in Milwaukee or Bologna, let me know. I can't wait, mate. But that's going to be it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit that like button to show support, and we'll see you soon.